Yes, thank you everyone for joining in to the webinar on Microsoft 365 Copilot, how you can protect your data from and what are all the security risks. Okay. My name is Ahmed Zusair. I'm the founder and CEO of TechZoetic. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and also the only business applications MVP in the UAE. So today we will talk about Copilot security risk. But before that, what is Copilot and where can we see it? So Copilot, as you know, is your personal assistant that is present in most of your Microsoft ecosystem. It helps you it's a AI generative AI tool that helps you answer the questions through natural language, right? So as you can see, Copilot is present in the whole Microsoft ecosystem, starting from your Office, which is what we are going to talk about, from Microsoft 365 to Dynamics 365, Power Platform, GitHub, Windows, security, your browser, your Power BI, as well as Microsoft Azure, right? So what we are going to talk about today is specifically Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is embedded into your Office applications, right? So now Copilot, as we saw, Copilot is basically the UI for AI, right? So you have a lot of agents, custom agents running in the background, but in front you will be making use of Copilot to interact with those agents in the background, right? So if we to bring it into perspective, if you if you have Microsoft 365 subscription, if you log on to m365.cloud.microsoft, the first thing that you see is the Copilot chat interface, right? Over there, you have the usual Copilot chat. You also have access to the work tab, which is Microsoft 365 Copilot. If you develop some custom agents in your SharePoint, you have access to those agents as well on that interface. So hence that's the Copilot is the UI for your AI agents, right? So now there are more than 70% Fortune 500 companies which make use of Microsoft 365 Copilot, and they are seeing tremendous benefits of it, right? So as you can see from Vodafone can 68,000 users are seeing 90% of them are praising the benefits, saving 3 hours savings per person per week, right? Which if you multiply it by the number of users, it's a tremendous benefit, right? Similarly, Honeywell is saving 92 minutes per week per person and nearly 2 weeks per person annually. So it's a productivity gain as well as a cost benefit. So before we get onto that, let's just understand a little more. Like we said, it's a UI for AI. It's integrated in the tools millions use every day. That is basically your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and also within your Microsoft ecosystem. Right, and it's a platform for agents and extensibility. Like I said, you can develop your custom agents in SharePoint and also your custom copilots with Copilot Studio. And of course, all of this is based on your Microsoft 365 tenant, which basically applies all your policies that you have on the tenant level, the security and privacy compliance policies as well, right? And of course, you have flexible purchasing options. Starting there, there's no minimum commitment that you have for the number of licenses that you can buy as an organization. You can start with one license as well and go up to thousands, right? And of course, whatever the investment we do in Microsoft 365 Copilot, we need to understand what benefit we are getting as well. So there are tools built in 365 Copilot that you can which you can use to measure the AI impact and the business value it has provided to you. Right? Let's understand how does Microsoft 365 Copilot actually work, right? So you start from here where you are the user and with your devices and the apps on your devices, which is in browser, in your Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, PowerPoint. You put some prompt to Copilot. You put some prompt, that is the first thing. It goes to Microsoft 365 Copilot. And now put the prompt, it actually goes to Microsoft Graph, which is basically the the API layer that manages all the data that you have as a user access to. Okay, so the Microsoft Graph checks who you are and what data you have access to, and then it gives you goes to all the data that you have access to. So it can be a mailbox or mailboxes, I would say, OneDrive files, your Teams data, your SharePoint files, and lists as well. And once it goes it fetches all that information, it goes to an LLM, which is again, that is not trained on your data. It prepares the response that it can provide back to you. It prepares that response, and it goes back over here to your device, and you see the response that, okay, this, let's say for example, you ask what was the last email from person X. So it goes over here, it goes to your graph, it checks what data you have access to, then it goes to your mailbox, fetches all the emails, it goes back, LLM prepares a response, and the LLM provides a response back to Copilot, and Copilot gives you the response, right? So that's how the flow works. So the important part over here is this, where you can see the user accessible data. So graph checks what data you have access to, including the files and everything, right? So now, how does MTC Copilot respect data privacy and user permissions? Right. So again, like I said, if once you add the response, Copilot goes here, Graph takes care of all the files that you have access to, right? So it goes into everything company data. Of course, there are many mailboxes in the company, but you have access to only this one. So Copilot Graph will make sure that you get response only from this one. Similarly, you have access to, there are multiple files in your OneDrive, but or in all the across the organization, but you have access to only these. So Copilot will only return these. Similarly for Teams, and similarly for SharePoint as well, right? And hence you get this one. So this looks all good. Doesn't look like there can be any security risks here, to be honest, right? So, but that's where the permissions come to play. Now you have access to these two files, but you are not supposed to have access to the second file. Actually, you should only have access to the first file. Now Copilot is doing its job, and now it's giving you access to only what you have permission to, right? So Copilot is doing its job perfectly. But as an IT manager, or the guy who's managing the security in the organization, it's our job to make sure that the users have the correct access, right? So that's where the permissions come into play, and that's where the security risks lie, which we will see in a few moments. Right. So of course, Microsoft 365 Copilot is built on trust, and Microsoft has its commitments and controls in place to make sure that they give the most secure and the best experience. And of course, you have the tools to manage your data available as well, which is where our role comes into play. Now, Microsoft's commitment is that they secure your data at rest and in transit, and you only have your control over your data, and your data is not used to train any foundational models, which is the LLM part which we saw, and you are protected against AI security and copyright risks, right? So that's the commitment that Microsoft has for us, right? But we need to, beyond that, is what we need to take care of, which is the permissions and stuff, right? So if we look at the top security and governance concerns about generative AI, 80% of them are data oversharing and data leaks. So 80% leaders cite leakage of sensitive data as their main concern for generative AI, which is we have seen in the past, like a lot of organizations banned use of generative AI because people were actually putting sensitive information into ChatGPT and other AI tools, which is basically the identification of risky AI use as well, right? So queries into AI, that was one of the top AI controls they want to implement. So we want to prevent users from putting sensitive information into AI as well. right? And hence we would like to have a governance and risk visibility as well, where we need to see which where the data is being input and which apps and tools are being used, and if we need to stop a few of them on the organization level, we should have those tools available, right? So these are the main concern from the security and the governance perspective. So the oversharing. So we let's say for example, again, I have let's say there's a person called Bob. He has access to certain SharePoint files. Now, he recently got access to Microsoft 365 Copilot, and he was searching for something related to the salaries. And earlier, he had to go inside each different SharePoint files and had to go. Now, he found out that you can actually ask Copilot about it. So if he enters into what is my my salary and stuff like that, he enters a prompt. Now he gets a response from Copilot pointing to a SharePoint library, saying, "Okay, this is what I could find from your salary perspective in this file, and plus there are." Other information, other people's information as well in this file. So Bob got curious and he opened that SharePoint folder. Turns out he has access to everyone's salaries information suddenly, which at one point of time was just a document library for just internal HR use, but now it has sensitive information as well. But the user permissions were not reset at any point of time, which turned into an oversharing content, right? And Bob doesn't need to have access to everyone's salary, but only his. But now, because of that oversharing or permission issues, we have the risk of sharing the data with people who are not authorized to see it. So that's where the oversharing comes into picture. So where Bob gained visibility into overshared content because the permissions were not in place. Then we need to remediate those excessive permissions. Ideally, that SharePoint site should only be accessible to HR people, and we need to prevent Copilot also from processing sensitive files. Right. Similarly, again, the same thing is also an insider risk. Now, let's say Bob gets furious by looking at some sensitive files, and now he wants to share with other users in the organization. Because he has that permission, he is able to share that as well, so which creates an insider threat, right? And he might actually expose those files to external organizations as well, again, because he has those permissions. So we need to make sure that we get alerts and reports of risky behavior and AI use, and we need to protect the sensitive files and Copilot tractions, right? And of course, we need to apply those security policies based on those risky actions as well. And finally, let's say now when Bob prompted, we need to see, okay, what led to that response, right? So hence we need to see what kind of interaction did Bob have, and when the see the audit logs to see if there are any compliance or ethical violations, right? So that's the top concern. So we will go into it one by one. Let's start with the oversharing concerns. So what is oversharing? Like I mentioned, Copilot only accesses data that is in individual user is authorized to access. Now, of course, Bob had access to it, so hence Copilot responded with it. But he had access to information beyond what is necessary to do his job. That's exactly what oversharing is. When you have access to more, let's say, for example, a person from HR does not need to see data from sales, but if he has access to it, then that's oversharing. So that's exactly what oversharing is. Now, what causes oversharing? Now, let's say, for example, if I'm saving a file to a location with broad access permissions. Now, let's say I have two SharePoint sites, HR and sales. Let's say again, there's another person called Mary. She has access, she's in HR and she has access to sales as well. Now, she is drafting a document, a sensitive HR document. and by mistake she saves it into the uh, a sales SharePoint site, or SharePoint the internet SharePoint site, which is which everyone has access to. So uh, saving a file accidentally into that SharePoint site which everyone has access to can cause oversharing. A user is sharing content with someone who should not have access. Again, that's either deliberately or by mistake, that can cause oversharing as well. And third is when we do not have access protection. Now, if only there was a way where we could mark a document as, let's say, sensitive or confidential, we could probably overcome this issue, right? So we will look at this part, the labeling part, in a few moments, but that is a solution that Microsoft provides as well. So now, how can we actually overcome these issues, right? So what are the basics of overcoming the oversharing issues? So first and foremost is, of course, you need to identify which sites and files have sensitive data, and then you need to see which sites are shared broadly across the organization or with multiple departments. Now you need to assess that, do the all the departments actually need access to that data or not, or to that SharePoint site or not, right? And you need to also see what are the most frequently accessed files in your organization, right? And based on that, you can do a risk assessment where the everything, if it falls within high risk, medium risk, or low risk. Now, for example, a site contains documents with credit card numbers, right? And and everyone in the organization can access that site content. And then now you can also see, based on the historical, 575 users accessed the site last week, which is a very, very high risk. You cannot compromise the credit card numbers of customers across the organization. So that's a high risk situation where you need to prioritize remediation, right? So in this case, what will we do? First, we will revoke the access of for everyone, and only give it to the people who are required. In this case, mostly it's gonna be like finance, right? And of course, once we do that, even the number of users will reduce, and only those people who actually require the access will be able to access the SharePoint site, right? And hence we will remediate that effect, right? So that's the first one. So like I said, we need to restrict user and or Copilot access, and we act on policy suggestion to mitigate oversharing. And we remove the organization-wide access, which is the important one. We need to make sure that organization fights side access is only required in the situations where the whole organization works together in that site. Otherwise, if there's any sensitive information, you should never have organization-wide site access, right? And of course, once you remediate, you need to make sure the same issues do not come again. So we need to make sure that we get notifications when new oversharing concerns occur, right? Whenever, let's say, site is shared organization wide, again we need to be flagged, right? If we need to make sure that if there's a sensitive data, on a file level we need to add those labels and DLP policies, which we will come to. And we need to improve the Copilot responses by archiving or deleting the unneeded content, or we need to make sure that it is excluded from Copilot's index, which you can do, right? So now let's come to the second one, which is the data loss and insider risk. Now, once Bob had access to those files, he can actually go ahead and share internally or externally as well, because he has those accesses, right? So now data loss and insider risk may occur without Copilot use as well. Of course, we don't need Copilot for that. Once we have access, and it can be shared anywhere. but the Copilot can create can further that effort, because now I can actually, for example, if the permissions are not in place, I can actually, instead of searching through SharePoint file, I can just ask Copilot, okay, what are some of the intellectual property documents, or some contracts, or something, all of the confidential stuff. I can ask Copilot, and it will give me the response, because of course Copilot doesn't know what's sensitive. We need to make sure that it's only providing you the content that you have access to, right? So now data loss is when unsafe or inappropriate sharing or transfer of use of content, sensitive content occurs. Like I said, if you share that confidential information internally or externally, that is your insider risk, and it can lead to loss of data, right? So now, because it's mostly because of all the permission issues. And one of these scenarios can be where the employee has resigned and wants to keep the company IP, and uses Copilot to quickly find the most relevant content, right? So how do we remediate this? So first thing is, we need to get the alerts and reports of any risky behavior and AI use. So we need to see again what are the sensitive data, and how many of these interactions have happened in Copilot, how many people actually asked for it, right? So we need to see if there are any prompt injection attack. So based on the user's behavior or the prompts that they are doing, we need to see their interaction, what was the prompt text, what was the response, and which resources they accessed, right? And hence we can identify, okay, if this user might be showing any risky behaviors, right? Then we need to, of course, protect the sensitive files. So we need to label the data, which one is, let's say, mergers and acquisitions or confidential data, and stuff. So when you do that, when you do that, you see over here, when the admin creates a policy that Copilot should not access the files with this label, and someone asks, okay, Copilot, can you please summarize this? The Copilot will say it is protected and I can't provide anything about that content, right? So hence we protect the confidential documents, and we prevent any insider risk by blocking the access to Copilot for those specific documents, and labeling the documents as confidential, right? So, of course, once a user shows any risky behaviors, or asks any questions that can be identified as a risky interaction, we can actually analyze his behavior and block their access until we investigate and talk to the user, and get more information on why they were doing what they were doing, right? So that's about the insider risk. And the final one is the governance of AI use in the organization. So, of course, once we have seen that there are things happening, we need to see how the Copilot interactions are working, and see if there are any compliance and ethical violations as well. So, what is Copilot governance again? It's a Copilot governance supports use, and Copilot use in adherence to organizations' policies and regulatory requirements as well. There are a lot of frameworks in place for specifically around AI, which is like EU AI Act, NIST AI framework, which we need to use to make sure that we are complying within the organization. So of course we need to limit the exposure of Copilot misuse by identifying issues early and mitigating them quickly. If let's say we let the organization-wide site access open to many users, the more time goes by, the more higher the risk of those credit card numbers being exposed to more users, right? Hence, we need to identify the issues early and mitigate them as soon as possible, right? So, of course, we need to also identify what data we need to keep or delete from the Copilot generated content in according to the risk management preferences. So now Copilot interactions can we can create a retention policies where, of course, if there's a Copilot interaction, we can delete it, really retain for 6 months and then delete it. Of course, it's not only from the compliance perspective, but also from the organization, storage, and everything perspective as well. But more from the compliance perspective, you need to make sure that those policies are aligned, right? So we have the AI interaction. So what date, time, which user, which what was the prompt and the response. We audit all those interactions. And let's say if there's a legal hold for a specific user, we need to make sure the Copilot prompt responses should be a part of it as well. Let's say, for example, an employee was caught in a legal hold for some sort of fraud, and the Copilot prompt responses are also now a part of it. Earlier, it used to be only the documents or and emails that they have access to, but now Copilot responses as well. Right. So, of course, we need to investigate for compliance and ethical violation, like copyright violation, insider trading, and stuff. So, whenever something like that happens, we need to make sure that we receive an alert if a possible compliance or ethical violation occurs. Right. And admin can search for litigation or investigation, including co-pilot generated content, like I said. Right. So, now what is shadow AI? That's another sort of risk, which is basically employees are, let's say an employee is excited to try some generative AI apps due to productivity benefits, right? Let's say when ChatGPT first came into picture, like people working at big organizations, they wanted to try that out, right? So let's say now some companies, intellectual property or trade secrets were then added on ChatGPT, and they were making use of ChatGPT to generate content. Let's say even for emails, that's something like emails, right? But to give it context, they gave out an intellectual property to that third-party app, which is, of course, making use of that data to train their own algorithms, which is a big risk for any organization. If another organization is using their data to train their models, right? So that's what shadow AI is. You're making use of third-party apps that are not authorized by the organization, and you're giving them the trade secrets, right? So now we need to understand what kind of applications are the employees using. What kind of application is it? ChatGPT, Perplexity, or something, or which are not authorized by by the organization, right? So we need to understand the security and compliance risks for the specific cloud AI apps, and we need to work around the AI frameworks that security frameworks that we have in place. Right. So ideally, we should automatically block unsanctioned apps. So this can be the workflow. So we need to we first discover which are the cloud apps and services the employees use, and then we assess the risk levels. Right. So should the employees use it? No way. Then we tag as unsanctioned. Right. So we block the use of those apps. Now, if they should use it, we tag them as sanctioned, and if the IT should manage it, then we onboard it to conditional access, and we make sure that the proper security controls are in place. Right? If we are not sure, then we need to assign it for further review and assess those risk levels until we reach to either of these outcomes. Right? So now, for all this, of course, Microsoft 365, Microsoft has solutions in place as well, right? So Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, specifically, if I talk about the oversharing and insider risk, when you get a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, it comes with something called SharePoint Advanced Management, which provides you tools for governance to see in bulk, like what are the sites that are overshared. And you can also get the reports for which sites have what kind of permission. If they have everyone, they have the files that are shared with everyone, only internal users or only specific users and stuff. So you can get the reports based on that. and based on that which you can take action as well, right? So that comes with only the 365 Copilot license itself, and you can then make use of those tools to overcome the oversharing concepts and insider risks. However, for the governance part, where you need the labeling and stuff, you need something called Microsoft Purview. That's a separate offering which has like a reactive risk identification, proactive risk identification, which automatically provides labels to specific files, right? We enforce the file level access controls. Let's say, for example, if a label says confidential, it can only be accessed to CXOs, right? If it says internal, it can be accessed to the executive level or to the manager level, right? If it's just a internal public use, then it can be shared outside the organization as well. So we can add those labels and also identify risky user patterns using Microsoft Purview, right? So as you can see, with Microsoft 365 Copilot, you can identify potentially overshared site, enlist site owners, restrict user and or Copilot access to risky sites, and you can remove organization-wide site access as needed, and you can improve the Copilot responses as well. But when you come to Purview, you can do the same, but also you can do oversharing assessments, and you can also act on policy suggestions that will be provided by Purview, right? So as you can see, now if we look at the oversharing concerns specifically, if we go just for Copilot licenses, we can just see the files, overshared sites in foundational, but with the Purview, we can see sites and files both. The assessments are only available in Purview, and if you want to restrict user and or Copilot access to risky sites, it's available in both. But if you're talking about want to prevent Copilot from accessing certain sensitive files specifically, then you can do it only in Purview, right? Similarly, for policy suggestions, only in Purview, organization-wide access, and both notifications when new oversharing concerns are occurring, then again, it's available in both. Securing sensitive data through file level access control is available in both. And finally, Copilot responses by archiving or deleting unneeded content. Again, Copilot only gives you access to on site level, but Purview gives you access to file level as well. So just to see it, some screenshots over here for Copilot. So in Purview, you can have these assessments, which can provide you, okay, which what are the data sources, how many items were labeled, and you can see no sensitive data information types detected over here. And some of them says the sensitive information types detected. So it can automatically scan your SharePoint sites and label the data based on the information that it has, right? So there are already by default, there are approximately around 200 or more labels that are available in Purview, which includes different countries, passport numbers, ID numbers, social security numbers, health record numbers, and stuff. So it looks for those kind of data in your documents and files. Right. Similarly, when you are want to protect them, so if you see the labels are found which are sensitive, you can either restrict the access by label, or you can restrict all items. So you want to just stop everyone from accessing it apart from the admins. That is something which you can directly take action from Purview itself. Right? Then there's something called advanced management, like I mentioned, which comes with the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, where you can block the download policy. You have change history, conditional access policy, data access governance reports, which is the important one, which you can use to discover potential oversharing and keep track of sites that have sensitive files, right? And then sensitivity labels and under access restriction and more, right? That comes with Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Right? So Purview again applies, as you can see, which we mentioned. If there's a there's a sensitive document that we ask Copilot to make use of. It can say they found a document, but I cannot access the content due to organizational policies. So once you have that those policies in place, Copilot will respect that. Right. Then, from the data loss and insider risk perspective, there are again reports of sensitive data and unprotected files that are available in both Copilot as well as Purview. Alerted to risky AI use, which is an attempted prompt injection attack, is only available in Purview. Prompt and response and text and reference files, again, if you want to see an audit log, it is only available in Purview as well. If you want to detect when content contains sensitive data, it is available in both. You want to auto apply the protections, again, it's only available in Purview. If you want to Copilot response and create inherit sensitivity labels, it is available in both again. If you want to block Copilot access for a specific sensitivity label, which is, let's say, confidential or mergers and acquisitions, it's available only in Purview. And when if you want to protect even if they are moved, then it's available in both. And the risky user actions, risk alerts and stuff, it's all only available in Purview again. So if you want to see one of the reports, which is over here, you can see from the Purview, you can see how many interactions were there over time in Copilot and in the other AI apps. You can see OpenAI ChatGPT Enterprise. If it was since this will be an approved application, so you can see those approved applications over here as well, right? Then you can see the other reports from the data per unethical use in AI interactions. So you can see stock manipulation, money laundering, threat, or targeted harassment. These are all the kind of interactions that were used in Copilot, and hence that is flagged in the Purview report. Again, sensitive interactions per app. You can see there were sensitive interactions, and these were the kind of interactions where there was source code involved, sabotage, social security numbers, credit cards, and stuff in these different applications, right? And similarly by department and also by sensitivity labels, right? And finally, you can see from Copilot processing, like which files is Copilot being processing over here, and you can see the risk severity per app and potential risky prompts as well. Okay. And then finally, there's the adaptive protection based on the user's behavior. It can flag that okay, this user risk level is elevated and this user's risk level is moderate based on the interactions that they are having. We can then make take action to block their access until we evaluate and investigate, and then we can move forward. And then finally, of course, from the governance perspective, you can audit the Copilot interactions in both Copilot as well as Purview. You can enforce the retention and deletion policies in Copilot interactions, again in both. You can include a user's Copilot prompts in a legal hold for both. But if you want to receive an alert if a possible compliance or ethical violation occurs, then it can be done only in Purview. And even if you want to track adherence to regulatory frameworks, which we said EU AI Act, NIST AI framework, and stuff like that, that is only available in Purview. Right. So let's say from the compliance perspective, if it detects non-compliant content, you can see over here, right? So you see free gifts to clients and stuff like that. So you can that's the flag over here. And if we want to see EU AI Act, the compliance to that, we can see all these policies that are required and in the improvement actions. So we can make sure that we comply with this roadmap. It will provide you clear roadmap of what we should do in order to comply with these regulatory frameworks. Right. Of course, the people have been using it, Microsoft Copilot and Purview as well, and we are not saying it. The customers are saying it that The Microsoft Purview helps preserve confidentiality of sensitive data because everything is seamlessly integrated and they can manage data in entire Microsoft 365 environment. They found it advanced and flexible for their information governance approach and critical for generating accurate responses. Right. So that's the power of Copilot and Purview together, which makes the organizations much secure and compliant. So that was about it. So we are, like I mentioned, we are tech strategic. We are into custom software development, mostly custom CRMs and workflow automation tools. And we also provide cloud solutions and migration solutions. And of course, we are an Adobe and Microsoft partner for developing custom solutions and also from the software licensing perspective in case you require. And finally, AI solutions and technical trainings are our forte as well in case you require any of those. Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and have a lovely day.